The view of the Colley family home on South Bellagio Drive in St Augustine was the picture of suburban contentment. Until it wasn't. Only minutes after an officer from the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office left the quiet cul-de-sac, emergency calls would bring deputies, search teams, and crime scene units back out to the neighborhood. Inside the house, two young mothers had been murdered. Hi everyone, I'm Kevin and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. Today's case is not much of a murder mystery. What it is the story of a relentless and thorough investigation that painstakingly pieced together every message, every phone call, every movement, and every witness to a shocking and horrific crime. In doing so, despite the best efforts of an unusual and creative defense, authorities left little room for doubt. Let's take a look. On the morning of August 27th, 2015, a home security camera facing South Bellagio Drive in St. Augustine, Florida, captured a group of friends arriving at a house on the end of a quiet suburban cul-de-sac. At 10 minutes after 9 that morning, 36-year-old mother of two, Amanda Colley, returned home in her white SUV. Amanda, recently separated from her husband, had spent the night at her boyfriend's RV. Upon returning to her home, Amanda was met with a chaotic scene. Her house had been broken into and ransacked. Garbage bins had been emptied across the floors, drawers emptied of contents, clothing scattered everywhere, and multiple electronics, including television sets, had been destroyed. Pieces of broken glass were scattered amongst the rest of the mess. Amanda was upset, but not surprised. She had been ignoring phone calls and angry text messages from her estranged husband since 5 a.m. that morning. She was certain that he was responsible, but unsure of how to proceed. Roughly a half hour later, Amanda's boyfriend, Lamar Dubberly, drove out to meet her. His white pickup truck took a wide turn at the end of the cul-de-sac, then towards Amanda's house, on the far left, slightly out of view. Lamar was followed only minutes later by a St. Johns County's Public Service Assistance, or PSA, officer, sent over by the Sheriff's Department for non-emergency investigations. The officer viewed the state of the house and spoke with Amanda. She needed time to discuss with her divorce attorney and made the decision not to formally file charges that morning. There was little more that the PSA officer could do. The officer left Amanda Colley's house at 10:29 that morning. What occurred over the next 7 to 10 minutes would forever change the course of many lives and end others. Two more of Amanda's friends arrived at the house to support her. First, Amanda's best friend, 39-year-old mother of three, Lindy Dobbins. Lindy left work that morning after hearing from Amanda. She was the type of person who would drop everything to help a friend in need. Lindy, Lamar, and Amanda were soon joined by mutual friend Rachel Hendricks, who, having dropped her children at school, also drove over to the house to help out. The group of four stood in the living room of the house on Bellagio Drive, staring at the mess and consoling Amanda through her tears, when gunshots rang out. Bullets flew through the room, shattering the glass doors that led out to the backyard. Only minutes after the PSA officer left, Lamar is captured running at full speed from the house. He left the living room through the laundry room and into the garage, where he ducked under the partially opened door and out through the front yard. Running between two neighboring houses, he continued until he came across a landscaping team several streets over. There, he finally paused and asked for help.
Shots were fired from the outside into the house. And
Do you know who it was?
Yeah, I got a great idea who it was.
Okay, are they still there?
I don't know. I left. I had to run.
So the gunshots didn't hit anybody, correct?
No, they hit the back and glass shattered everywhere. They hit the sliding glass window. I think the shots were aimed at me.
Only a few minutes after Lamar ran from the house, Rachel Hendricks followed. Rachel ran 2 doors over to the home of the Dickens family. Once inside, she hid in a closet and called 911.
Give me some information so they know what's going on. The cops just left her house. They just left her house because her husband ran out of the house last night. They just came over and did a report with her. He was in the house shooting and I just ran. I think he shot everybody. I'm so scared. I got sprayed by a bullet. She said she got sprayed by a bullet. He started firing and she ran to the neighbors. But he point blank shot my friend that was right in front of me. I mean, I'm scared to death. So so he shot me and he shot Lindy Dobbins, our other friend that was there with us. I'm hiding in a closet at the neighbor's house. I'm scared to death.
2 additional calls to 911 were placed from inside the house, one by Amanda and another by Lindy. These recordings captured only muffled noises, cries, and gunshots. Inside the house on South Bellagio Drive, police found Amanda Colley. She had been shot 9 times. Many had struck her arms and legs, suggesting that she had attempted to shield herself from the attack. Amanda's best friend, Lindy, was found in the back of a long, narrow closet off of the ensuite bathroom, which connected through the master bedroom. Lindy had been shot 3 times. Neither young mother survived their injuries. Rachel explained to law enforcement that she saw the gunman through the glass doors, which overlooked the backyard of the property. Just behind the fence is a walking path that weaves behind the homes on South Bellagio. The man fired from a position on this path. The bullet holes in the glass doors and the unused rounds located in the grass on the trail confirmed Rachel and Lamar's eyewitness accounts. Lamar, having returned to the scene when it was safe to do so, told investigators that he heard the sound of gunshots simultaneous to the shattering of one of the glass doors. Amongst this chaos, a man's voice yelled out, "Where is he? Where is he?" It took only moments for Lamar to register the situation, connecting that he was the likely target of this attack. He called out to the others to run and took off from the house through the garage. The 3 women fatefully ran in the other direction, towards the bedroom and through to the adjoining bathroom. Rachel told police that she and Lindy hid in the bathroom closet while Amanda remained on the other side of the door. Rachel listened while the gunman entered the house through the shattered doors and then into the bathroom where they hid. Rachel heard the man demand repeatedly, "Where is he?" He ignored Amanda when she explained that it was only Rachel and Lindy in the closet. Lindy had called out, "It's me, it's Lindy," yet a shot was fired through the closet door. The gunshot grazed Rachel's arm and caused her to release the tight hold that she had maintained on the doorknob, keeping them safely inside. This same gunshot would strike Lindy in the foot. Amanda had also been injured, but was alive when the gunman turned his attention to the closet. Entering, he pushed the door wide, concealing Rachel behind it. As he approached Lindy towards the back, crouched slightly behind a chest of drawers, Rachel saw her opportunity and made a run out of the closet, then out of the house. She did not witness her friend's final moments inside. Rachel did, however, get a good look at the gunman, a man she knew from countless meetings, whose children she used to babysit, who would have once been considered a friend. It was Amanda Colley's estranged husband, James Colley Jr. K-9 units were brought in to track James Colley's scent to determine the direction that he had fled. They tracked him back through the trail, over a berm and to a neighboring street. A cyclist discovered his cell phone that morning, discarded near to a neighboring road. But the vehicle that he had driven to the neighborhood that morning was long gone. Helicopters scanned the area. As the hours passed, St. Johns County sheriffs launched a systematic search. Police believed that he was still armed, and after opening fire on his family home in broad daylight, they remained uncertain of what he may do next. Hours later, police officers in Norton, Virginia, pulled over James Colley Jr., driving his sister's car and armed with multiple weapons. Inside the vehicle were the two guns used in the murders, a 9mm and a .45 caliber handgun. Handfuls of loose ammunition sat on the front passenger seat. If there was any doubt still remaining that he had been the shooter, shards of glass from the house were also found inside the driver's side door. By August 2015, James Colley Jr., who often went by JR, and wife Amanda had been married for 8 years. The couple shared 2 children together. As the marriage fell apart early that summer, the two separated. James moved in with his sister Rhonda, whose home on Garrison Drive was roughly 15 miles away from their marital home on South Bellagio. Over the next few months, the couple worked through many hurdles, sharing custody of their 2 young children. James began seeing someone new, a colleague from his job at Citibank named Amy. The two began making plans for their future together, for when the divorce with Amanda was complete. Amanda was similarly moving on. She and Lamar met at the sportswear company where they both worked, Lamar in operations and Amanda in customer service. Despite the physical separation and his new relationship, it seems that things between Amanda and James, at least in the mind of James Colley, were not over. He repeatedly demanded to know if Amanda was seeing another man, a fact that she was unwilling to confirm to him. But James had other means of sorting this out. The weekend before the shooting, James received a photo that had been taken by his former neighbor and close friend, Mike Dickens. The photo showed a topless man mowing their front lawn on Bellagio Drive. That man was Lamar Dubberly, though James did not know his identity at that time. He knew only that his suspicions about what he called Amanda's affair were being verified. In the early morning hours of August 27th, the day of the shooting, James set out looking for more clues of this relationship and the man who had been cutting his former lawn. By just after 4:30 a.m. that morning, he seemed to have found what he was looking for. There is no video of James Colley breaking into the house on South Bellagio in the early morning hours on the day of the murders. He likely approached the house undetected through the backyard, as he would do again armed with 2 handguns only hours later. With his children safe in bed at his sister's home several miles away, he first entered his family's house at around 3 a.m. to find that his estranged wife was not at home. Enraged that Amanda was staying elsewhere, he ransacked the house, throwing clothing, garbage, and other items on the floor and destroying more than 1 television set. Then, at 4:40 a.m., his truck is caught driving towards the end of the cul-de-sac and pulling into the drive at Mike's house. There, James woke up his friend by banging loudly on his side door. He wanted to show Mike what he had found inside Amanda's house: a handful of newly purchased adult toys. By entering the house on South Bellagio, James had violated, again, a domestic violence injunction taken out on him by Amanda earlier in the month. He was not allowed to be near her or the property. Mike told his friend to calm down. He gave James 1 or 2 beers and sent him home to go to bed. But James Colley Jr. was not about to calm down. Following the traffic stop in Virginia, James was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, burglary of the house, and aggravated stalking after an injunction. After pleading not guilty, James sat in county jail. Meanwhile, investigators with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Department began to piece together his movements between leaving his friend Mike Dickens' home that morning at roughly 4:45 a.m. and his return to South Bellagio at 10:30. These actions were key to proving what the state prosecutors already believed: that the photo of Lamar, topless, cutting the grass that weekend, followed by the discovery of toys purchased by Amanda, were the catalyst for the murders. James was fueled by anger that had been ignited by the photo, and then boiled over on the morning of the 27th. Beginning just before 5 a.m. after leaving Mike Dickens, the calls and texts from James to Amanda began. Between that time and the moment he began firing into the house, James called Amanda's phone 22 times.
Don't do nothing to me, I won't do nothing to you. I won't bring you something to court about what you really are. And we both know what you really are. You're lucky I don't tell our children about this, Amanda. You're disgusting. That's what you are. Please talk to me. Please talk to me. Please, this is the last time we'll tell her today. Please.
Between his angry, then desperate voicemails, James was sending text messages. You should have just told me the truth if this is what you wanted. I would have left you alone. I'm giving you a chance to walk away now. You should have just told me. I could have moved on. 8 years and 2 kids. Please call me. And I'm going to come find you. His last call registered at 10:22 a.m., only minutes before shots were fired on the house. Only 3 of James's calls to his estranged wife were answered. The first 2 were very short in duration. The third call lasted slightly longer, just under 15 minutes. The state believed that whatever was said on that call may have been the final trigger, sending James Colley Jr. into a rage. James Colley's defense team prepared to argue that he was not guilty of the charges against him due to involuntary intoxication. Beginning 2 days before the murders, James began consuming a dangerous combination of substances. He had been prescribed Cymbalta for his anxiety and hydrocodone for pain. James drank 11 pints of beer on August 26th, then consumed more scattered drinks throughout the next day. After returning to his sister's home following the break-in and early morning visit with Mike Dickens, he took Ambien before going to sleep. James awoke only a few hours later, arguably still under the influence of the drug, in conjunction with a combination of others. At about the same time that Amanda was returning to her home that morning, James Colley arrived at the courthouse for a hearing on an unrelated violation of his domestic violence injunction. He entered the courthouse calmly and followed the proper procedures through building security. James is then captured on camera navigating the halls and entering court for his hearing. He appeared, as far as could be clearly seen, calm and collected. In court, James listened and responded to the judge's questions, including denying that he was under the influence of any intoxicants. He pleaded no contest to the violation. When James left the courthouse that morning, he continued his calls and texts to Amanda. On his way back to his sister's home, he stopped at the gas station to purchase a small amount of gas. This purchase was made either to get him into work or to top up the tank in preparation for fleeing out of state after the attack. At his sister's house on Garrison Drive, law enforcement found what they interpreted to be further preparations for the shooting. In the bedroom where James's other belongings were kept was an empty gun holster discarded on the floor. From the closet, a gun case for a shotgun had been pulled out, left sitting amongst piles of ammunition. A dark gym bag next to the gun case contained even more bullets. Included with the piles of ammunition were .45 caliber zombie rounds, the same that the medical examiner found had been fatal to Amanda Colley. A gun case for a 9mm handgun was pulled out from under the bed. On the bedside table were James's medications. And inside the drawer, the adult toys that he had taken from the house the night before. When the trial commenced, defense counsel left open the arguments that they would use to explain James Colley's actions. They had lined up a clinical pharmacologist and clinical psychologist who were prepared to explain how the medications that James had taken could result in an inability to think clearly, act reasonably, and most importantly, form intent to murder. Defense attorney Terry Shoemaker told the jury that there was something visibly wrong with James when he attended the court hearing on the morning of the murders. He had been the shooter on South Bellagio, there was no question about that, but he was not in his right mind.
It's never been a question who did that. The question is, why did it happen? How could this happen? How could a person that loved his family more than anything in his life do that? How could a person who loves his kids more than anything in his life, coaches football, coaches baseball, takes them to Disney, goes on trips, make them orphans? How could that happen? He has to ask the same question a number of times. As he's looking at him, he realizes, yeah, he seems a little nervous, but there seems to be a little more. He's sweating profusely. He's jittery. Just something didn't seem right. And how that can cause memory loss, how it can cause sleepwalking, how it can cause acts that people have no recollection of. In other words, at the time of these events, they're going to tell you that it's very possible that JR didn't know what he was doing, or didn't know what he was intending to do.
The state laid out a thorough case. They first called Rachel Hendricks to the stand to identify James as the shooter.
There was a loud shatter of glass shattering and a small explosion, like a bang, coming from the outside in. So I looked out back from, obviously the glass was shattered and falling on the floor. So I looked out back and I saw Mr. Colley standing in the backyard with a handgun shooting into the living room.
Mike Dickens' testimony established the events that the state believed triggered James's motive: the photo of Lamar and the discovery of the toys in Amanda's house, which James had promptly shown to his friend after discovering them.
He just wanted me to come outside and look in the front seat of his truck.
Right. Did he tell you why he wanted you to look in the front seat of his truck?
Not at the beginning. He just kept telling me to get out there and look what I did or look what I found.
Okay. And he was upset about discovering these items, is that correct?
It was, yes, sir.
Did he tell you where he found these toys?
He did.
Where did he tell you he found them?
He told me he had ransacked the house and he found this inside the house.
How did you respond to that?
Basically that, well, there's her proof, that she's cheating and we're, big deal. Who cares? Go home. He was agitated. He was upset. And he was, very antsy, but he was upset. He was crying, from what I recall.
Experts presented the data extracted from James's cell phone, including both his call and text history, as well as his location data. Text messages to Mike revealed James's anger and frustration, not just towards Amanda, but also towards her close friends, Lindy and Rachel. James appeared to blame Lindy in particular for turning Amanda against him. Throughout July, he sent a series of texts to Mike about Amanda's friends. He wrote, "Amanda met with Lindy. 30 minutes later, she tells me she no longer has feelings for me." And, "This is BS. She had those two bitches in her ear." The jury also heard the angry messages that James left Amanda on the morning of the murders. On one of these calls, a voicemail was recorded that captured scuffling noises and voices in the background. It occurred at the time that James was thought to be at his sister's home collecting the guns. In the background, the state believed James's father was yelling at him and calling him a moron. It was further evidence, they argued, that James packed up the guns with the intent to use them. They believed his father tried to stop him from leaving the house with the guns. A call to his father's phone from James then took place minutes later. That call occurred while James was en route to South Bellagio, just after 10 a.m. A dog walker who was near to James's father at the time overheard the call.
I was just hearing him say, please son, come back and get your truck. Don't do this. Everybody knows what you've been through. The person on the other end was doing most of the talking, but it was yelling, so I couldn't hear everything the person said. The only thing I heard clearly is he said, I can't effing take this anymore.
After the state rested its case, the defense changed tactics. Video footage of James's courthouse hearing that morning, followed by his gas station stop, multiple phone calls and messages, seemed to discredit any argument that he was incapacitated on the morning of the murders, as they had initially argued. The involuntary intoxication defense was abandoned. Instead, the defense sought to poke holes in the theory that the murders were premeditated. To do this, they had a key witness, not James Colley himself, who would not testify, but rather his sister, Rhonda. At the time of the murders, James had been living at her house, but she was not at home. She had just left on vacation to Italy. 2 weeks after the murders, Rhonda told law enforcement that the shooting was not planned in advance. She knew this, she said, because the guns that were used had already been in her car, the same vehicle that James had been driving that morning.
Did you lock that vehicle up when you left to go to?
I did.
Right. And what was the reason for locking it up?
I had 2 guns in the vehicle, and I wasn't planning on going to be home for several weeks.
And what guns did you lock in the vehicle?
The 9mm, and I think it's a .45.
Did you anticipate that anybody would be driving your vehicle when you went to that?
No, of course not. Nobody ever drove my vehicle.
The state clearly perceived Rhonda's testimony about the guns to be convenient. Her little brother, with whom she remained very close, was facing a potential death sentence if convicted of first-degree murder in the state of Florida. Establishing reasonable doubt as to his premeditation would downgrade the conviction to second-degree murder or even manslaughter and could save his life.
Little brother, and you would do anything for him, wouldn't you?
To buy anything.
And that's my question. You would do anything for your little brother, wouldn't you?
To apply.
Rhonda was questioned about alleged inconsistencies in her testimony. 2 weeks after the murder, she told a detective that it was a .45 caliber and .380 that were locked in her car. Later at a deposition, it was a .45 or maybe a .40 caliber handgun. Only at trial had she become certain that the 2 weapons she had left in her car were in fact the 2 guns used to kill Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins.
Why are you guys saying this is premeditation when you know that the guns are in my car? Something along those lines.
Right, you volunteered that. You're like, hey, it's not what you guys think it is because I had the guns in the car. Right?
Yes,
and he asked you, what guns did you have in your car?
Right.
And you said, I think it might have been a .45, but you said nothing about the 9mm, did you?
I was on a lot of medication then too as well.
Okay. So your testimony here today is that your memory about the guns that you left locked in your car when you went on your 2-week trip to Italy is clearer 3 years after the fact versus 2 weeks after the fact. Is that correct?
Again, after much therapy, yes. I'm remembering more things.
And when you kept these guns in your car, you didn't keep ammunition for the guns in your car, did you?
No, I had to, analyze the guns.
Okay. You didn't like keep a box of ammunition in the front passenger seat, did you?
I did not.
You didn't like keep loose bullets rolling around in the front passenger seat, correct? You didn't have them anywhere in the car, did you?
The defense counsel argued that James did not go to Amanda's home with the intention of killing anyone. They speculated that something set James off once he arrived. The defense did not know what, but argued that since the guns were already in the car, this must have been what happened.
Now, the state wants you to believe that he drove all the way back to get the guns, but the testimony today is that the guns were already in the car. I don't know what happened to set them off. The state doesn't know what happened to set them off. I have no idea, but I can tell you that he already had the guns, and if he was going to go over there to do this, he would have gone straight from court. I would say that it's a second-degree murder case, one in which a shooter acted with a depraved mind and not without regards for human life. We could find him guilty of that, maybe. But there hasn't been any proven premeditation based on what the state has said today or what the evidence shows.
The final phone call that James had held with Amanda took place after his court appearance. The call lasted 14 minutes. It cannot be known exactly what was said. Prosecutor Jennifer Dunton argued that this conversation was the final trigger. She told the jury that from that point onwards, he had many opportunities to change course, but did not.
I don't want you to forget about all the choices he made on August 27th, all the time he had to reflect. Don't forget that he could have left court and gone to work. Don't forget he could have let his issues with Amanda go. You heard he had a new girlfriend as well. They had plans to go to a wedding. Could have let it go, but he couldn't. Don't forget that he returned to that house on Garrison and obtained those firearms. That he drove 15 miles. It's a long time to think about what you're about to do. Don't forget that when he didn't find Lamar inside the home, that didn't stop him. He could have left, he could have run out the front door looking for him. But it didn't stop him. When he couldn't find Lamar, he continued to hunt and hunt for him. Decisions. His dad begged him not to do it. People are telling him to stop, but he's not listening.
The jury deliberated for 2 hours before returning unanimous verdicts on all counts.
We, the jury, find the defendant James Terry Colley Jr. as follows as to count 1 of the indictment. Guilty as charged of both first-degree premeditated murder and first-degree felony murder contrary to Florida statute sections.
He was found guilty on all 7 counts: murder, attempted murder, as well as burglary charges.
So nothing will bring Amanda and Lindy back, but they are satisfied with the jury's.
I love my son no matter what, and the whole story was not told.
The same jurors who convicted James Colley returned the following week to determine if his crimes warranted the death penalty. The defense called the witnesses that had been prepared for the potential involuntary intoxication defense. Dr. Mark Mills, a forensic psychiatrist, testified that James was substantially impaired during the murders because he was experiencing an ambient side effect called parasomnia. The doctor described parasomnia as a sleep disorder where someone seems to be acting in a rational way, but later has no recollection of his or her actions. A clinical pharmacologist gave testimony similar to Dr. Mills's. To refute this testimony, the state presented 2 witnesses, Dr. Jeffrey Danziger, a forensic psychiatrist, and Judge Charles Tinlin, who presided over the injunction violation hearing the morning of the murders. Dr. Danziger said that people in a parasomnia state sometimes are able to engage in behaviors like sleepwalking or driving a car, but generally these behaviors are poorly coordinated. And to a layperson, those in such a state would appear confused, dazed, and obviously impaired. It just so happened that there was video evidence of James Colley's behavior and demeanor during the period that he was arguably in a parasomnia state. Judge Tinlin testified that he had no concerns that James Colley was impaired during the hearing. His demeanor was fine. The jury recommended that James Colley should receive a death sentence for each murder.
Having unanimously found that at least one aggravating factor has been established beyond a reasonable doubt, and that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a sentence of death.
A Spencer hearing was subsequently held, which was the last opportunity for his attorneys to offer mitigating factors to the court in the hope of vacating his death sentence. At this hearing, James finally spoke out, albeit briefly, calling the murders a terrible accident.
prior to the court deciding what an appropriate sentence is in this case. Do you desire to say anything to the court, Mr. Blake?
This was a horrible, terrible accident. And I wish it was different, but it's not. And I'm sorry for all parties involved. And that's it.
James Colley's attempts at this hearing to avoid death row failed. The Supreme Court of Florida later also affirmed his convictions for first-degree murder and his sentences of death. For the family and friends of Amanda and Lindy, their loss means that this horrific ordeal will never truly be over.
Even though he's convicted, I don't know that it's not good enough because you can't get Lindy back, It's like a nightmare. And it's still a nightmare. It'll always be a nightmare.
And that was the tragic case of Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins. Thank you to everyone who watches and supports the channel. A special thank you to our latest members, DB, Fuller Fam, and Howard Carver. This is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.